In tonight's episode, Free and Steve Earle.
Now, as I've said many times before, the music business was a very different place in the 70s to what it is now. There was a fast turnover. Most bands made an album every year. Sometimes they made more than one album every year, as we're going to see in a minute. I think one of the standard deals was 3 albums over 2 years or something like that. This is an album that I've got many times on vinyl and many times on CD. Yeah, I still want more, because what I haven't got is the gatefold cover, which I think came out in Australia. And has since been put out in a box set, which has got all of the albums, but it's ludicrously priced, and I could not justify paying the best part of 200 quid just to get a gatefold sleeve, even though I'm not that mad. Anyway, the album we're talking about is Highway by Free, and it's an album that didn't necessarily go down all that well at the time. If it was a follow-up to Fire and Water, the point we're making here is that they went back into the studio on the 21st of August 1970, which was barely a few months after Fire and Water had come out. I think all of that might probably have still been in the chart. They probably, I can't think the exact date of the Isle of Wight festival. They'd either just done it or were just getting close to doing it. So it was a busy time, and on the back of the success of Fire and Water, they were sort of sent back into the studio to record the follow-up, which was Highway. Now, for somebody like me, who is of the age where I went, this is one of my sort of funny stories that I like to tell. I always say to people, what was the first gig you went to? Well, the first gig I went to, I didn't really go to, but my dad used to say to me, we were on the Isle of Wight when that rock festival was, and we booked a family holiday without realising it was on, and we were stuck there for ages because we couldn't get off the island because there were so many people trying to get off. And, of course, a great way for him to wind me up, me thinking that there I was on the Isle of Wight, where Free were playing, and Jimi Hendrix and all there, and I was probably building sandcastles on Jacqueline Beach at the time when all this was going on, totally oblivious to what was going on round the corner. But anyway, I was sort of there. I was closer than most people anyway, apart from anybody who was there. And if there was anybody there, tell us your stories about it. This is what we want to see more of at Crush Custard. We want to see more people commenting and telling us what they think, not just what me and the man in the attic think about stuff, because a lot of the time we're just talking from our own perspective, and we're not actually, when our view isn't the view of everybody else. And don't be frightened to tell us something different. Do it nicely. It's always good to do things nicely, but do it. And that would be good. Anyway, to get back to this before it ends up becoming the longest episode in the history of the world ever, I haven't got through the introduction yet. So anyway, they went into the studio 21st of August and started recording Highway. Now, Highway didn't sell very well. I don't think it was promoted very well either. Interestingly, it was one of Kossoff's favourite albums. He thought it was one of the better Free. I think it was, maybe, I've read somewhere, I might not be 100% right about this, but I'm pretty sure he said somewhere that it was his favourite Free album. There are certainly times when it becomes mine. There are 2 or 3 tracks on there that really stick for me as being what Free were all about. Obviously, Be My Friend is something that we'll talk about a little bit later on probably, and Ride on Pony is another one that divides people, isn't it? A lot of people sort of think, oh, it's just that's it, but it's not. It's all about the way it works. I don't know, years ago when I was messing about trying to be in a band and stuff, I asked a guitar player to play it, and he said, I'm not playing that, it's boring. I spent the next 20 minutes writing out an advert, guitar player required. Anyway, that's a different thing all together. Anyway, now what happened with Free before this album is that most of the songs that they recorded, they played them live before they recorded them, and that's probably how they got so there were lots of tracks that were in the live set long before they ended up on the albums. This one was slightly different in the fact that they hadn't really got anything at this point because they've been so busy in the success of All Right Now and obviously led to lots of other things that they had to be doing, promotional stuff and whatever. And so they found themselves going into the studio to record Highway without a lot of stuff that was ready. Now, through the first 3 albums, they built up a solid sort of reputation as a hard-working, solid blues sort of rock band. And for each of these albums, the songs have been written and honed to perfection on the road. So much so that the entire previous album, Fire and Water, was played live at some point or other in the year of its release. Now, that wasn't the case with Highway, though. For the first time the band were forced to write in the studio. The irony of that is that the recording of the second and third albums had caused a lot of angst. There were lots of difficulties. The band disagreed with record company people and producers and stuff. None of that problem with Highway, and it's generally regarded by members of the band as the easiest to record. It's another one of those things where it's almost like if you're wanting to pigeonhole things, you can put the 3 albums into different boxes, can't you? You've got Tons of Sobs, you'd say that was their bluesy album. Then you'd say Free, that was their folky album, although Paul Rodgers claims it's a soul album. To me, it sounds more like a folky album with things like Free Me and Morning, Sad Morning and all that sort of stuff on it. Fire and Water would be their sort of rocky album. And in places I would say that's got probably a bit more soul on it than Free anyway. Highway was a different thing again because it seemed to be sort of drenched in sort of melancholy and backwards sort of thinking. I don't mean backwards in the sense of it was a backwards album. I mean, it was like reflective, a lot of the sort of stuff. And it was quite a sad album as well. There was lots of soul stuff in there as well for me. And there's even like tinges of country in it. So it all moves on. You wouldn't immediately look at it and think this is a follow-up to Fire and Water, but I can see why some people think it's lost the edge of Fire and Water. But for me, that edge has been replaced by something else, which is equally as good, and it's got some great tracks on it. But I think you would have to probably say it's probably the softest and the most sort of laid back of the 3 albums. Although some of the tracks sort of got a little bit more meaty on the stage than they did in the studio. Now, the whole thing starts off with a very curious track called the Highway song, which is, I say curious, it's curious in subject matter because you don't get many songs about farming, do you? You don't get many rock songs about going off working on a farm in the summer or whatever. So it's only loosely based on farming, but you get my point. It's not sort of your normal rock and roll material, is it? It's a nice mid-paced piano and drum shuffle, and it sets the tone quite nicely, and it casts back thoughts of lazy summer days. And apparently, Paul Rodgers said that the idea came from his liking of the album music from The Big Pink by the band. So that was where the idea for that came from. They did play it live a few times. I don't know if there's any officially released live recordings. I've got it on some bootlegs somewhere, and it was a little bit rocky on live, but it was a good song. Maybe not an album opener for me, but it's still a good song. Then we get to The Stealer. Now, this is probably the track that sort of sums up the album in many ways, because it's sort of like, to be the follow-up to All Right Now, really. Similar sort of lyric as well. It's a similar sort of subject. It's almost maybe trying to be too much like All Right Now. But it bombed. I mean, they thought it was better than All Right Now. And it didn't do anything. It didn't get anywhere in the charts at all. And it was a bit of a mystery. I think it sort of set the tone for the next year or so, really. And then the breakup that came not long after that. Because they were so disappointed. Now, what came out many, many years later was something that is referred to as the extra cost version, which was a version that they'd recorded at the same time. And it got this really powerful Kossoff solo in it. Now, why on earth they took that out and left it off the album, I've got absolutely no idea. Because it just takes the whole song to a completely different level. Now, when I go back to listening to the original album version, I find it difficult because you're just waiting for the Kossoff guitar and that solo to come in, which is on the things. If you haven't managed to get hold of a copy of that, it's on all the remastered versions and things now. The extra cost version of the Steeler is fantastic. They released as a single in the 80s when they were doing a few sort of reissues of compilations and stuff. It came out on a 12-inch single as well, so you can get hold of a copy of that. It's pretty meaty on that. It's also, of course, on the old CD singles and all that. I think it was on the first resurface. I think on a compilation called Completely Free. Maybe wrong, so quite a few that came out around the same sort of time. But yeah, the extra cost version of the Steeler is wonderful, and I don't know why they didn't leave that one on the album. It's a minute longer and it's virtually all Kossoff guitar. Absolutely fantastic. Anyway, if the people that know, come and tell me, because I'd be interested to know. Next up we get On My Way, which is a slower, more gentle sort of song. One of my personal favourites. This one, a perfect vehicle for Rogers' voice and Kossoff's guitar to blend nicely together with Simon Kirke and Andy Fraser just driving the song along from behind. It's a classic sort of little known free track really. It doesn't sort of feature on all the compilation things, although it immediately got me with the sort of melody of it is one that I particularly like, and it's one of my favourite songs. And of course that leads into Be My Friend. Everybody of course has heard Be My Friend, one of the great rock tracks. The difference between this one and the live one, which is the one that most people post on social media that you see on YouTube a lot, which is normally taken from the live album and quite often put over the pictures of the Isle of Wight Festival. Though there is the actual proper Isle of Wight Festival one is out there as well, so it's well worth looking for the right one. The live version has got much more guitar in it. The studio version has a lot more piano. It's more piano led on the record than it is on the live stuff. Although bizarrely, despite that, Kossoff said it was his favourite song on this particular album, and I think he may at one point have said it was his favourite free song completely. It's certainly most people's sort of favourite free song. I've never come across anybody that doesn't like it, and of course it led to lots and lots of copycat versions of different sort of songs from different bands which were in the same sort of vein. But you've got to do something really well to beat the feeling that Rogers gets out of his voice and Kossoff gets out of his guitar. An absolutely incredible combination which we are so lucky to have recorded, that we can still be enjoying it now 50 odd years later. The second half of the album is where I think a lot of people probably think it potentially falls away. It sort of starts off with a track called Sunny Day, which is, I don't know what you describe that as. It's almost like it's a folk or a country type song really, but it doesn't really go anywhere for me. I think it's one of the weaker cuts on the album, as is the sort of country tinged track Bodie, which is a bit of a sort of a ballad type thing to the story. It's almost a country sort of song, and what you're going to take into it's very difficult for me to be sitting there, because Free obviously are my sort of second favourite band behind Deep Purple, and it's very hard for me to try and keep them, because I want to sit here and tell you they're all brilliant, because to me they are, but I have to try and put over what maybe everybody else might think, and go on what people have said to me when I've played it to them, and most people think Bodie is a bit of a throwaway country and western type song that they're overly fond of. But there you go. I'm sure there are plenty of people in my boat who will quite happily sit and listen to this lot singing the phone book or playing nursery rhymes or whatever, because they're just top quality musicians. Now we come now to Ride on a Pony, But is it ride on a pony? Is it ride on a pony? Is it ride on pony? Is it riding on a pony? Everywhere you look, it's got different titles. It's got different pressings. On the album cover of the live album, it's called Ride on Pony. I think on this one, it's called Riding on a Pony. On the label, it's called Ride on a Pony. We need to have a word with Mr. Rogers and say, what is its real title? Because, I mean, even he calls it lots of different things, I think, when he's playing it now. And it's hard to tell what it should be called. So, should it be called Ride on Pony? Should it be called Riding on a Pony? I suppose grammatically, it probably ought to be called Riding on a Pony. But Ride on Pony sort of maybe sounds a little bit more rock and roll. I don't know. Anyway, it's the classic free riff. If I know a lot of people say it's just a bit the same, but it isn't. It's if you got somebody now who'd been living on the moon for the last 50 years and you had to describe to them what the free sort of sound was, where do people get that Flat Tires and the Muddy Road thing from? It's the riff. This is a it's just you know, it's brilliant. As soon as I hear that, I just can't help smiling. Now, many years ago, I used to I get this as my ringtone. I used to mess about with it, so I got that riff as my ringtone. It used to drive people bonkers. I'd be on a train or I'd be in the office or in the pub or something, and all of a sudden my phone would start going and of course I didn't answer it very quickly because I was quite happy listening to it. But yeah, I was tempted to try and do that again because it probably sound even better on the type of phones that we've got now. We've got two more sort of brooding, bluesy love songs with soul-tinged vocals to make up the album. A tremendously melancholy and heartfelt plea of Love You So, which is just wonderful. And I think on a free video that came out, which has got the Isle of Wight stuff on as a collage thing of cut-off pictures and stuff. And this is the track they've used over the music bar, over the top of all these photos of Kossoff from when he was a child, right? He sort of sadly died. So it's again, that's one of my sort of like lump to your throat sort of songs. It's brilliantly performed again, and it's one of these things, isn't it, with certain bands and certain people. A lot of people say to me, why have you got so many? I mean, I know Free only put out officially one live album, and then there's the live disc that came with the Songs of Yesterday box set. But if you're somebody like me, you've got a cupboard full of bootlegs of varying quality and all that sort of stuff. But they're listenable enough to know that, like Deep Purple, my other band, every time they played a song live, it was a little bit different. It wasn't a case of it was just the same old song again and again and again. They did it differently. Because don't forget, some of these bands, they were doing 2 sets a night. They were doing an early set, they were doing a later set. Some places in those days, they were even doing like an afternoon show. There was like a show in the afternoon and there was another one at night. Or bands would play in one town at 7 o'clock and then they'd play somewhere else at 10 o'clock. That sort of thing went on. And if you're playing the same song sort of like in the same way every night, it would have got quite boring. So that's why there was quite a lot of improvising. And of course, Paul Rodgers is the genius with the phrases that he can change the point of the line quite often and make it sound sort of different. And he does that with simple songs like that. To Be My Friend, which hasn't got a great deal of lyrical content really, apart from a lot of the same thing over and over again. But it makes it sound different every time, and he's just drenched in the feeling of those old soul singers from years ago. And Love You So is exactly the same. Then at the end, you've got the last track, Soon I Will Be Gone, which is, again, it sort of sums up the album to me. It's got that whole sort of melancholy, we're a little bit lost looking back at what we've done. They were virtually only kids still at the time. It was in the 1970s still. They'd only been going really a couple of years. And how old were they? Like 21, 22, something like that. Andy Fraser probably wasn't even that old. And yet it's almost as though they've already been tarnished, if you like, or worn out by what the music industry was at that particular point. Yeah, Highway for me, sometimes I think it's my favourite Free album. Sometimes another one might overtake it, but it's a great album, and give it a go if you haven't given it a go, because it's a lot better than a lot of people give it credit for. It certainly doesn't deserve to be far away at the bottom of Free's discography, and it should have sold better. It should have been promoted better, and maybe it came just a little bit too quickly on the heels of Fire and Water, and it could maybe have done with a couple of other tracks in there just to beef it up a little bit. But it's still a classic album in my mind, and it's well worth a listen. So give it a go. And if you see that gatefold copy about, and it's not silly money, pick it up for me.
The Man in the Attic.
Hi there, custard peeps. I'm the man in the kitchen again for another session. It's just nice here, sitting with the door open into the garden, and it's nice and cool. It's been damn hot again today in London town. So it's another CD, I'm afraid. Well, I'm not afraid. It's another CD. And the one I've chosen for you is a big favourite of mine. A big favourite. And it's this. Steve Earle and Copperhead Road. It's probably one of his best-selling albums. Was released in '88, and I came across Copperhead Road as a result of listening to Johnny Walker's show on a Saturday afternoon. I was in a garden working back in 1988, for that is when this was released, 1988. And Johnny Walker put this tune on, and it was the lead track. And it's the opening track of the album, title track, Copperhead Road. And it starts off with this kind of bagpipey keyboard intro, and then it's into mandolin starts along, and those great lyrics. I'm John Lee Pettimore, same as my daddy and his daddy before. Those of you who know it know what I mean. And it's going along with a lovely mandolin sound. And I'm thinking, hey, man, when are the drums going to come in? And then after about 90 seconds they do, and then boom, you're off. And it's kind of like the happiest of marriages. It's kind of like Nashville, because Steve Earle was a real kind of more country on his first couple of albums, Exit Zero and Guitar Town. Very twangy guitars, but then this comes along, and it's like a mix of Nashville and AC/DC. It is absolutely brilliant. And I think 88, going into 89, I went to see him touring this album at the Town and Country Club. And it was a 2.5 hour show. I think he had the Irish band Energy Orchard as support. What a show, man. And it was when Steve Earle, I mean, he's going bald now, Steve Earle, but it was when he had really long hair, you know, the bandana and the whole bit, the real rebel. And it was fantastic. A fantastic show. But back to this album. What's this album like? Well, it's a 10-track album. And there isn't a weak one on it. Brilliant. Goes from Copperhead Road into Snake Oil, and then more sort of AC/DC-esque riffing on the third track in Backs to the Wall. And then we got The Devil's Right Hand. The Devil's Right Hand, the Devil's Right Hand. Mama said that. Oh man, what a great track. And it is really just a beautiful mix of country music and real riff-laden rock. As I said, Nashville meets AC/DC. Johnny Come Lately, track 5 in, about another kind of Vietnam vet tune. Even When I'm Blue comes in at number 6. And that's a bit slower, and that trolls along nicely. You Belong to Me, track 7. Boom, 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 ba-dum, ba, bum, bum, bum. Oh boy, that cooks along. Great stuff. Waiting on You at number 8, another great tune. Once You Love at number 9, another fabulous tune. And then the really lovely Nothing But a Child at number 10, a bit slower, a bit more reflective, and it ends the album really nicely. But if you want to hear what good country and rock music mixed together sounds like, go for this. If you've never heard it, and I can't believe there must be some of you out there in custard land who are familiar with this album. Brilliant. And Steve Earle's produced several great albums since. He even did an album a few years back now with Sean Colvin. They did a duo album together, and if you get the chance, get a copy of that. It is great. So yeah, I'd not long had a CD player when I bought this, and I loved it and love it still. Great, it's a great album. It's a real feel-good album. Copperhead Road is one of those all-time classic tracks. If Steve Earle was known for nothing else, Copperhead Road is just brilliant. But he's known for so much more. He's a really good songwriter. Really good songwriter. I like these kind of American guys like him, John Hyatt, John Mellencamp. They're all great. All great. But this is an exceptional record. If you owned one Steve Earle album, make it this one. It's a real good one. It's a man in the kitchen or man in the attic recommendation. It's one of those that reminds you why you love music, and especially that first track, Copperhead Road. From that really long intro, and then the drums come in and bang, they're away, and then it cooks along for the rest of the album until you get to Nothing But a Child at the end, which slows it down and ends it on a whew kind of note. So yeah, you want to rock? This does it. Another recommendation from the man in the kitchen, but he's the man in the attic. See you again soon, guys. Take care. Bye.
Please press the like button if you enjoyed tonight's episode. Subscribing will also help the channel grow. See you soon.